No, I'm recording. But that's a little bit hard when we're remote. So if you go, oh, it's not there yet. Stand by. Not date restricted. Now, if you were to log into Blackboard and go to the announcements page, you'll see a Google Doc. It's real simple. 8 slots for 8 students, which takes up the whole of our class, mostly. And it's just a chance for me to meet with everybody, to have you show me your work. So since I can't wander around the room and just look over everyone's shoulders, figure we can have a check-in. If you're on site, I will check in with you on site. If you are working remotely, then I will check in with you through Blackboard. And actually, I know what to expect. There we go. You can tell me if you're going to be checking in remotely or on site. I know for a couple of you what the answer is for obvious reasons. But still, let me know if you're going to be here in person or if I can expect you on Blackboard. You'll be able to share your screen with me on Blackboard, and then we can talk about what's going on. You can ask me specific questions to your specific project. All right. So again, this is this link here to that Google Doc. Please let me know if you cannot get into it for some reason. But otherwise, I'll be checking in with it at the end of class to see if people have been filling it out. So please get that done today so I know who to expect when. But otherwise, that means next week there's no big lecture. There's no full, class meeting. That's intended to give you more time to work, which is why we always had those second to last classes like that. All right. Any questions on how that's being set up for next week? It does mean you have to have substantial work done on your walk cycle by next week. So next week, yeah, by next week. So you'll want to, have at least your 4 basic poses done, even if you don't have them, out of step tangents yet or anything. I'm doing that on purpose because the hardest thing with some of this is to just get something on paper. I was telling my other class, I said this is because they have to, there's stat 108, so they're working on their final, and they're like, what do we do? And I'm like, well, this is like when you're talking to your roommate or your partner about what to order for dinner, and they say, oh, order whatever, and as soon as you say, well, I'll get pizza, they say, oh, I don't want pizza. If you just start your assignment, once you get something going, once you get something moving, then you can go, oh, I actually didn't want them to look like that. But until you do that, you won't know that you didn't want this to be posed like this. Even I'm working on this, and I'm like, all right, I kind of wanted this to be like a basic walk cycle. But even I'm looking at this going, I should have had leaned him back further and had him puff his chest out more. So I'm thinking of all these extremes I could put in. I can only put them in, though, because I got this started, and I got my structure here. Right? Without that structure, I don't have the room to make edits and everything. All right, so I've got 2 different versions of my walk cycle here. One is a stepped version, and the other is not only did I put it to tangents, but I changed some of the tangents. And so I'm going to show you the difference between the 2, and then we're going to talk about what that means and how that looks. Now, I'm dealing with tangents for all of this stuff. And by all of this stuff, I mean, I was doing this the lazy quick way, and I was hitting S on the keyboard instead of keying specific things. So not only was it keying all the rotates, even though I might only be using 1, it was keying stuff that this rig has not actually gotten rid of, which is a little bit of a shame. So it's a lot of stuff to go through. And it may be in the end that I delete a bunch of stuff so I don't have to look at it. We shall see. But transitioning this from stepped keys to regular tangents is a little bit of a thing. And it's enough of a thing that I wouldn't do it until I really liked my 4 poses at least, or even if, I did some breakdowns after that. So technically speaking, as I look at this particular thing, I got something going there, but I'm not super happy with it. And with all the work it's going to take me to change my tangents, I'm showing it to you now because I want you to have the information. But me personally, as I was working on this, I would fix my poses a lot more before I actually put this into real tangents and real animation, right? Um, Speaking of, that reminds me, this is one of the benefits of working from home is that your preferences are always saved. There we go. Mine definitely weren't. Also undo. All right, that one it remembered. Cool. Also, just a heads up, anyone online, the microphone battery is blinking. I'm not going to change it early, but if you suddenly hear me cease speaking, spam the DMs, the chat here, so I know that it stopped. It'll beep at me, and I'll realize, oh crap, okay, let me replace the batteries. Thank you. All right, so this is what it looks like with stepped keys. And it's actually not that stepped even because it's a pretty quick walk. So this is a good lesson in the two phenomenon that let us see animation, right? Persistence of vision and the psi phenomenon. Persistence of vision, we see the image longer than it's there. Psi phenomenon, we tend to, if something goes from point A to point B, we tend to assume it moved there rather than blinked out of existence and blinked back into existence. So even though this is basically on 4s, which is twice as long as the amount of space you ever want in animation between frames, it practically looks like it's animated, which is cool. However, eventually we do need to put keyframes on there. I am using Alt-1, by the way, as the hotkey to make those all vanish. If you don't like hotkeys, it's under Show, NURBS Curves. I drag select all this. I'm going to come into here and zoom out a bit. And remember, I have my one contact pose here, left foot forward. This is my contact pose for right foot forward. And then this is left foot forward again, but it's off screen because it's a repeat of this. And it's a repeat because we needed to transition from this second to last pose to this one. So I drag select everything. And I have to choose at least a default basic thing to go with. And I'm going to go with flat tangents. That's going to be wrong for anywhere from a third to half of these. But that means if I went with the other type of tangent, it'd still be wrong for another half of them. We are going to have to manually go through and change some tangents. We'll get to that in a minute. But I'm going with flat because I think it covers the most things while doing the least damage. So even if I miss something, it's maybe not going to have like a look to it that looks wrong. So we throw it onto flat tangents and we watch this. And it doesn't look any different. Stand by. Oh, cool. All right. That's an even bigger change than I was thinking. Oh, apparently I've got a wobble in my head. All right, that's interesting. This must be a slightly different file than I was working with at home because that wobble was not there. I kind of want to know what's causing that. Oh, hang on. I shouldn't be seeing that. Oh, no, yes, I should. Okay. He's pouncing the music. Yeah, we're going to. So one of the things that might happen is you'll see nonsense like that, and we'll go, what the heck? Oh, it might be because of these tangents. All right, cool, cool, cool. Good lesson. I was hoping for you guys to see the legs first. Oh, they're missing. Oh, look at the legs. They're not, the head's moving, but nothing else is. Yeah, half of these are still, okay, I thought it was nuts. Half of them are still step tangents. Hold on. Hold on a minute. linear, flat. Okay, I was gonna say. It's not working. This is frustrating because I literally did this just like earlier. And what I think is happening is that some things are just not listening. Either that or one of my settings is different from when I was back home. Give me 1 second. We're gonna figure this out. Animation, weighted tangents, flat, flat. Ooh. And I just want to change this. Oh, it changed everything. Shoot. Never a dull moment. Close and go back in. There's always something. Basically you should be able to flip a switch and have everything go to regular tangents. I don't know why this is being such a pain. It's disappointing. Don't show this at startup. My goodness, most useless thing ever. Sorry, it just gets hung up whenever you open a new file, which I'm sure happens to some of you at least. There we go. Come on. Come on. You can do it, Maya. All right, let's see what's going on here. That's the playback setting. Do. Cool. Let's drag select all of this. Go into here. Flat. Which should, sorry, there's something wrong with this mouse too. It was a good tech day so far. All right. Oh. This will be fun. So one thing that's happening right now, hang on, is my mouse will not move up and down. I swear you can't make this stuff up. Yeah, I'm moving my mouse up and down, and it's insisting that I'm going to the side. Give me 1 second. Kicking it old school, like an SNES cartridge. Shut up, it worked. There was something stuck in the mouse, so I couldn't do this, which makes it very difficult for, anything to happen, as you can imagine. So, well, that was exciting. All right. Oh, there's always 1 or 2 of these classes. Yay! That's what's supposed to happen. Woo! All right. So, it's so exciting. So this is what I was trying to show you. It's a little bit hung up there at the end, but otherwise this is doing what we need it to. I might just cut this back another, let's see what happens. Oh no, it doesn't matter, it's just gonna hang up every time. See this blue at the bottom, by the way? That means cached playback, which I hate. I hate it so much. So we're gonna turn it off and see if it does a better job of looping. Oh, it does. The looping works better when you have cache playback off. That's interesting. All right, so this is our animation right now, and it's almost like, oh, it's exciting, but then you start taking a closer look at it, and you're like less excited because there's some funny things happening. Funny things that I'm expecting to happen, not surprising things like broken mice and tangents not changing. If we zoom in here, the feet definitely don't look like they're staying on the ground. That like they're not doing what they're supposed to. The knees are all wibbly wobbly, and especially when it gets to the back, and it just everything is like that's the sound effect I picture when it's moving. And yeah, look at that right there. So there's a couple of things happening. One of which we'll talk about much later, is called IK snap. And you can see right from here to here, and then back to here. It's snapping tight, right? It's going from, a loose knee to a tight knee really quick. And that is, we call it IK snap, and that's because the IK solver likes to go from totally bent to totally straight very fast. The bigger problem, though, is the way the feet, like you see the knees wobbling around all over the place. Watch them. Look how shaky that is. That's because of actually something that's happening with the feet. Specifically, I select both of these feet and go into here. And we take a look at some of our, just kidding. There we go. Let's look at rotate X for both feet. Everything is a flat tangent. But this is really just going from here to here. And instead of just hitting this spot and gently sloping next, it's leveling off. Flat tangents mean that things slow down to a stop and then speed up again. What I really needed to do is that. And it's the same with that one. And this is the part, whoops, that gets a little bit tedious. This arc works better. I can select these two as well, and I can say spline. I'm using a spline tangent. A spline tangent will do the smoothest curve from point A to point B. There we go. There's the best one. That's the translate Z. The translate Z is how it's going from front to back. And these are mirror images of each other, like if you inverted one and then moved it over halfway. And look at this. Boop, 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 boop. That doesn't, we don't want any of that. We need all of these middle frames to be spline. I'll get to these bottom ones in a second. These are fine. These are, we can see it just going up and down. Aha, I'll get to that in a second as well. These are fine. I'm just going through anything that's like, I know has a, whatchamacallit to it. Here's another one. So that's the heel ball. You see this is the opposite. It's at the beginning because it's the different foot. There you have it. Toe up, down has the same thing. And so I go through and I find, at least on these ones here, you see there's extra crap I don't need. I just happen to remember where stuff is. And I find where I think the janky tangents are. Remember, it's not all of them. Plenty of these have to stay flat, and we'll go over what they are in a minute. But just with me changing the feet from all flat tangents to some flat and some spine, let's see what happens. Little less wibbly wobbly. Not perfect. It's a couple things we have to fix. Way less wibbly wobbly. I think the thing I have to fix is the hips. Yep. Look at all this. That's not what your animation curve should look like. There we have it. Again, I'm finding all the ones in the middle right now, and I'm turning those to spline. But the ones at the tops and the bottom, the extreme, need to stay flat. If I change this to spline, it does this. The hips end up going above where I set them to, and this is the worst part, it's at a different time. Now my extreme is a frame earlier. It's not even on a frame, and I can't control it, and I need to. So that's one of the reasons we start with flat tangents, is that all our extremes pretty much need to be flat tangents, because otherwise everything just, goes to pot. Let's see. There we go. So by changing those hips, I think that will get rid of most of the wibbly wobbly in the knees. There's still a little bit. I think I have to change the other hips as well. Now the other reason we want to worry about extremes being where we set them and not somewhere else. This is the foot. This is the translate Y for the foot. Is that what I wanted? Yeah. This is the translate Y with spline curves for the foot. Do we all want to guess what the 0 line is here? What does this represent for the foot? Translate Y, what's that? That's up and down, right? So if we go past this line, what does that line represent? The floor, yes. Thank you, Josh. It's the floor. Now, of course, it's backwards because someone decided to make Y a negative if you went up, which is mind-numbing for me. It's very frustrating. But we don't want to go through the floor. So flat tangents ensures that our feet do not go through the floor, at least by default. All right, so I grab the hips. And if you're thinking, wow, that's a lot of different pieces to go through individually and change their tangents on. Yup. Welcome to animation, where nothing comes for free. Here we go. Here's a good one that just needs to, So sometimes I need to change a tangent. This shouldn't be quite like this, but it also shouldn't be like this. I have to hand shrink this a little to kind of change this. It's like being an illustrator. I got to figure out the curve all on my lonesome without it flattening out quite so much. Getting better. Now here's the other thing that happens. I'm going to grab my 2 foot controls again. Bring them up here. And I'm going to take a look at one of the trying to find a good example of, okay. So some of these things like this, they go up and then they go back down and then they go up again. And so if you look at this, it goes up, and then this at the end connects to this at the beginning. And so you can see how flat tangents would be helpful there, because this isn't like, the ball hitting the ground and bouncing back up. This is when the foot is changing direction. And if you think about someone when they're walking, their foot isn't hitting the back. This foot right here is not hitting the back and then immediately snapping forward, right? It's a more round kind of situation. It slows down in terms of its moving backwards and then speeds up in terms of its moving forwards. So having it come to a standstill here is fine. This, however, is actually moving in a bit of a cycle. It goes down, 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 and it goes up higher, and then it comes back down to meet up with this. So this is part of the same curve as this, which means these need to be spline, because this needs to connect to this better. Now, eventually, we would have a different type of looping situation. But for right now, I need to look for, this plateau, so that's fine. I need to, where's the other one? There it is. So these two have to be spline. Anytime it's like making a loop where this comes up and then goes back down, I need to make it a spline tangent. Anytime it's, you know, coming to a flat place like this, I need to make it a, not spline tangent. And again, that's a matter of looking at the different things. This is definitely a spline tangent scenario. Very spliny. As is this. And again, I start with flat tangents because for me, I need to know that I'm not interpenetrating with the floor. I need to know that I'm not going past where certain standstill places are. That's what I need for me. You may prefer to start with splines and add the flats where you think you need them. Personally, I think a flat tangent that should be a spline is more easily hidden than a spline that should be a flat tangent. Does that make sense? Yes. Now, when I was going through this all, let me do a little save scene as action for 1. I eventually went through everything, well, most everything, and I kind of cleaned it all up and came up with this. Ah, let's see. Wind knocked out of my sails every time. There we go. Now, one might argue this is a little bit too smooth, and you could argue that correctly, but there's none of the herky-jerky tangents are getting in the way situation. And if you're thinking, wow, we're going from, you know, step to smooth, and then we got to unsmooth it, yeah, that's kind of how this works. We have our stepped animation that we had before where it was and then we have this intermediary step where we're trying to clean it up and not have weird flat tangents where we're not supposed to. And you eventually get used to just seeing them, right? Like, look at those curves. You can take one look and go, oh yeah, that rotate Y is no good. And so yes, we spend some time cleaning up these curves. And eventually, the more you do this, you're like, oh yeah, all those ones got to be spline. You know, eventually, oh, whoops. Eventually, you can look at a curve and know pretty quickly which ones have to be what. Nope. And that one is okay. Right? And so we slowly go through and we kind of watch it. There's definitely other stuff I got to do with the arms, the elbows, and everything. You could tell that's all, those problems are all still there. But eventually, when you clean it up, you get rid of the herky-jerkiness of it, but you end up with something that's a little overly smooth. But you want to get rid of the glitches before you start putting in things like the foot slamming down harder and, you know, playing with your tangents that way. You really need to get through one step before you get through the next. I mean, eventually, when you've been working at this for 10 years, you'll know exactly what you need where, and you won't need to go through as steps. But when you're first starting out, I really do recommend, you know, once you transition away from step tangents, clean everything up, change things to spline that need to be changed, get that where you want it, and then, is that one? Let's see. Think to yourself, all right, where's my translates? Ask myself, when is this foot landing? That's the Okay, it lands here. Here we go. This is the rotate Y. I mean, translate Y. Yikes. And I want this foot to kind of hit a little bit harder. So even though I said, oh, we usually want them to be flattening out when they come to a standstill, there are a few exceptions to that rule. And I can at least try a linear tangent. That might be too harsh. Might have to back off it a little bit. Curious to see if this one foot's going to look that much different than the other. It'll actually be more visible on this one because, there we go. I think actually, another thing you'll notice is you'll be like, why is this so close to this without being this? And the answer is probably because it's supposed to be at 0. It feels like that shouldn't be, you know, quite so far away. There we go. Let's find out. There you go. A little bit more of a hit when it lands. And I can play with the same things, you know, for this. There's the translate Y. So each time, and again, I'll have to remind myself where things are because some of these are backwards. This one's not. Cool, cool, cool. So this is when it lands on the ground. I can play with the fact that these might be broken tangents. I'm going to break these tangents. And I'm going to make this side a little bit more linear. You know, like it's, you know, like you're landing on the ground, like give it a little bit more oomph. There we go. And those are the kinds of changes we have to slowly make. I can also think about stuff like, you know, when the feet are pushing off the ground, whether it's the translate Y or the translate Z even, do I want to have it not take quite so long to get started? This is the foot pushing off the ground. Now, I might not have it go perfectly linear like the other one, but I can try and give it a little bit more oomph. See, this doesn't change too much because it's going up before it goes over. There's my other one. The reverse of the other foot, by the way. So it's moving, the Y's go up when the foot goes up. The other foot, the Y's go down when the foot goes down. Yes, that is confusing and terrible, and I hate it. So we started with something that was really segmented. We altered the tangents for them to be pretty smooth, but too smooth. And so then we have to go back in and really fine tune all of the different timings of things. And I'm not even going after the arms yet. I mean, these are fixed for the most part in terms of they don't have the weird start and stop. But I haven't even begun to look at the arm swing being a little bit more. Well, there's definitely something weird coming on in this arm. I don't know if you guys see that. Where is it? It gets real straight. Yeah, right in there. So what happens because of the timing, the shoulder, the upper arm, or the elbow, right here in these two frames, the elbow doesn't look like it's moving because the shoulder's swinging, but then the elbow is bending. Or rather, the elbow is bending, the shoulder's not swinging enough. Basically, it's like an optical illusion where the elbow ends up like in place. And we kind of don't want that. And in the videos that you guys will see online for, I think, the 4th step, I mentioned that I'm like, I may need to move this arm back further because it's too close to here. And I also could consider having this arm not be quite so far back. I already did the part where I moved the arm so that it wasn't quite so far back. And I've kind of hit the limit on that. So I really need to consider, is this, given the size of the walk cycle I'm dealing with, do I really need to give that a little bit more oomph so that when it goes from here to here, there is actually change. The hand actually moves. I know what the other thing that's bugging me is. I'm watching this, and the shoulder is rolled, like the whole body is swinging, right? So it's that's where it's at the most forward. Swings back a lot, swings back some, and then doesn't really roll or swing back at all here. And so I need to consider something to do with the back as well, and either having it spun more on this one, which might be extreme, or something else in mind. And if you're thinking, wow, that means you have to change the other contact pose too, maybe. Yeah, I don't like how this is all suspended in here. I'd have to think about how I'd want to change that. And it's one of those weird optical illusions that you probably won't notice from here because it's all lateral. It's less noticeable. Yeah, the hand looks like the hand stays in place even though the other joints all move. We don't like that. We would like to change that. But that's for me to kind of figure out another time. All right, so any questions so far on, I don't know, just anything or any comments, any things you've noticed transitioning from stepped keyframes to the other kind of keyframes, the various other types of tangents? It is a lot of nitty gritty work. It is why I think it would behoove you to have your 4 major keyframes done before class next week, because it could take you, like, half of your work could be changing those keyframes, transitioning them into an animation. And even if you don't actually change the poses themselves very much, just changing all of those tangents in the graph editor could easily be like a substantial portion of your time. Just giving everyone a second to type if there's something they want to type. Done with the first 4, and I know you have the first 4, but then you have probably something in between of those 4. So the question, yeah, the question on site is, in order to introduce more swag or personality or anything, you know, we have our 4 keys. Do we do something in between them, or? And the answer is there is stuff we can do in between to give some certain subtleties and emphasis. But if I wanted this character to be like more of something, I would change the poses themselves. So if I wanted, and I think I mentioned this before, there we go. So I went for a pretty generic walk cycle, just so you guys can have like a blah template to go off of. But the more I worked with it and the more I see it in action, the more I'm like, well, if I want him to be like, you know, really cartoony, I should probably put more into the, you know. And one of those things is the line of action is kind of weak right now. It's a little weak sauce. And a lot of that could just come down to exaggerating, you know, the puffed up chest kind of situation. And that might involve, I have to decide, do I want them to lean forward and then come back into that? In which case I gotta do that again here. But I would change, if I wanted to, we have a generic lock cycle that works well and looks clean. I wouldn't call it losing points, but you want to add, I mean, this isn't entirely generic, this one I have. It's a little bit spunky. I would add a little bit of something. Make it slightly different than mine, which won't be too hard because it's not like I'm giving you the numbers I'm typing in anyways. But make it, you know, make your key poses a little bit different somehow. Make them, you can also go a little bit slower or a little bit faster. Your keyframes do not have to end up the same distance away as mine, and that will influence what you do with your tangents afterwards. So I guess to answer Andrew's question, there's two different ways you can make this different and give it different swag or panache or what personality. One is to tweak these keyframes a little bit. That's interesting, actually. You know, tweak these, because I didn't change it for the others. It's just to lean back on the contact. You know, change those. Not even different in betweens. I'm still just at 4 keyframes for the cycle. Or change the speed. Changing the speed would have a huge impact on what's going on. So I'm going to copy these and paste them over here to see what happens. I'm very curious. All right, let's see. Almost half works. I like it leaning forward for that. I would probably make a few changes to the up pose a little bit. Like I would have it leaning back a little bit more. But you know that it's if you haven't started yet, or even if you've done like, you know, a couple of the poses, that contact pose is where you have the most personality. That's where you add it. The passing pose is a reflection of the contact pose and also the fact that our arms and legs have to cross together. It's really just like the passing pose for me is so much just like a matter of logistics, and is informed by the contact pose quite substantially. And then when we do the down pose, there is some personality to that, informed by the contact pose. And then the up pose is like, well, how do I get from here to here? But that contact pose, that's the most personality you're going to have, because it's the legs are spread out the furthest, the arms are pretty far spread out. It's like the most posture you're going to have in your setting. But the other way you can do it is to change the timing of these. So I can grab all of this. I can grab my scale tool. And I can spread this out a little bit, and I can find out frame. Oh, I hate when this happens. You scale something and it doesn't end up with the keys on keys. Let's see, hang on, 13, 14. Trying to get it to just like land on frame so we can see it. Boo. Ooh, there we go. Nope. Whatever. I wouldn't use this because I can't tell it to be on frames. Let's see. So I need to stop this at frame 50 so we can see the whole thing. So I've expanded this out a bit. I've made this longer, which means it'll go slower, which means it'll look like oh, yikes. Something wasn't selected. Undo, 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 undo. So something wasn't selected when I scaled it. Oh, jeez. Hope this works. Still broken? That's gonna make me cry. Oh no, it's okay, never mind. I'm showing too much of the timeline. So it's basically just like going from the second to last frame to the last frame. That's what was breaking. Oh, I still broke it. Ah, that's okay. That's why we didn't save over it. Because then we could just open it up again. Um, oh, stupid Maya not letting me get to my downloads folder. Users, me, downloads, lock cycle. This is what I get for not using projects. Don't save. Please don't save. Let's try scaling this again. This time I won't break it. Let's see if it will. Okay, cool, cool, cool. So everything's kosher. Everything is good. Let's make sure everything is selected. Expand this out a little bit, just a little bit. We go to 45 frames. It's much easier to do when you don't have all your tangents done already. That and 1,000 today. Messing up my timeline. There we go. Let's try this. Oh, this is so aggravating. I promise this work. It'll definitely work if you have your stepped keyframe still, because there's so much less stuff going on. But I am baffled as to why this looks so bananas now. There's something going on right here. The original jump point, basically. And I'll bet if I undo, it's still going to get mad at me. Let's see. 32. Okay. Yep, it's just deciding that something does not want to get selected, and therefore something does not want to get scaled, which is annoying, because you should be able to do this. Yes, the graph editor is it's a lot. It's a lot to take in, but it's also like wildly important. Like there's no working without it in this field. It has to be a part of your life. I really want to find the one thing that didn't change. I'll bet it's this. Nope. Like it's bugging the heck out of me. Like there's one thing that didn't scale properly. That's what we're looking at. Years of staring at it, most likely. Oh, let's see. I don't know how you organize it in a way that you automatically know what's what. So I know what's what in part because I've done this for long enough that if I look at the hips on the graph editor, that's the up down, because I know that's the up down because that's the thing that's moving the most. Now I could also go through and maybe delete some stuff that I don't need. But in terms of everything, like this is oh, I lied. That's the rotate one. Oh, that's right, because he's swinging his hips. I also know off the top of my head the red, green, blue situation is just embedded in my brain. And it's just when you do this long enough, you can just like, it's like reading the Matrix. It really is. Remember that when that creepy guy is like, I can tell that this is a whatever, and he says something stupid, but he can tell what's going on just by reading the Matrix. That's what this is. The longer you work in this, the more readily you will know, oh, this is this piece, and that's why it needs to look like this. Oh, that's what you're going to know, that the foot is going through the floor because your graph looks like this. You will know it. You will know it just by looking at this stupid thing. Let me flatten this tangent. I need to rewatch those movies before the new one comes out. I never actually saw the second and third one. But it's, yes, you will, like, it'll just, like, it's gonna dawn on you one day after you've been doing this for a while. It's like, oh, I'm reading the Matrix. Like, you're gonna think of that. And you're gonna think of the time you had to take a really hard college class during a pandemic, remotely, while never meeting your teacher or seeing what half the students look like. In my day. So yes, I really want to like save this as like a broken thing and find what's going wrong, because you should be able to do this. And I'm so mad that I can't. Yeah, it occurred to me the other day. I was like, I've never met half my students at this point. Like when this started, I was like, I knew I had seen everybody. It was just like one semester we were away. It just keeps going and going. I'm like, where did everybody go? Yeah, I really want to know what's mucking this up. I would probably just have to go through and like, and it sucks, but I would probably have to like go through this and be like, which of these stops too early? My money was on the hip controls, but so far that is not being the case. Don't you just love, by the way, how these are like ordered in the graph editor in a way that makes no sense whatsoever? Arm, finger, shoulder, and then another finger will show up later, and you're like, what is happening? You're not crazy. It should be organized better. Don't tell anyone I told you this, but Autodesk is working on that. You didn't hear it from me. Let's see. Yeah, there's work being done. Again, didn't hear it from me, to make things easier for animators, so that things will behave the way you want them to, so that you can pull up only what you want to pull up. Oh, these all got scaled. Boo! Oh, it's definitely the hips. See how it's like really high and then really like. Also, something got put out of order. Um, we're just gonna open. I'm gonna go back to this. I'm gonna take a look at it later when I get back from vacation, and if I figure out what's going on. Well, Maya started off more as animation, and at the time, what it had was like great. It's exactly what anyone needed. And then somewhere along the way, um, it's gotten to be this behemoth, this industry standard that also has effects and rendering and lighting and modeling, and that's it's great, except it kind of forgot to advance some of its animation tools. So what people have been telling Autodesk to do is to have like y'all remember the modeling toolkit? We were just like bing bang boom, things I use the most. They're trying to do an animators toolkit, and you can design it yourself where you're like, these are my spine controls, these are my foot controls. Like that's what people are asking for. Whether they will do it or not is a whole other story, but that is that's what they're going for. Drag and drop toolbar. You can do your own stuff with the tools. How does it work? Let's see. I'm always trying to insert edge loops. There's a way to, there is a way to add stuff. What is it? Let's ask the knower of all things, Google. Autodesk Maya. I'm not even kidding. This is how I figure out things. Custom toolbar. Create a custom shelf. Add a tool action menu. Okay. Add a script action menu or tool item to a shelf. Select a tool. Middle drag the tool icon from the toolbox onto the shelf. Lies. Oh, you can only do it with the ones that are orange? Nope. Still lies. It's saying you can middle mouse drag stuff, but so far I'm not getting any middle mouse dragging working. Add a tool to menu item. Oh, switch itself. Control Shift click. Control Shift click. Oh, there we go. Okay, so there is a custom toolbar here, but also if you want to edit these toolbars, so I'm always using insert edge loop. I don't know why it's never in the toolbars. Hold Control and Shift and regular click, and it'll be there. And I believe I can click and drag. Nope, I go shelf editor. Da, 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 da. This right here, open up shelf editor, and then it's a really terrible interface, but I can click here, insert edge loop tool, and I cannot. There we go. Watch it traverse the screen. I can put it where I want. Save all shelves. So you can make a custom toolbar. It won't help you with animating right now because what we need is something that's like spine selection, and it's all there. Legs, like, and you can separate it out how you want and apply it also to the graph editor. But at least for the modeling folk, you can edit this toolbar, take away things you're never going to use. You know, stuff like that. So there are things you can do. You can also change your layout. I stick with the standard layout just so people know what the heck I'm doing. But as you saw with me accidentally moving the toolbar down here, anything where it's that like, where it looks like there's a tactile feature, like right here, if you click and drag that for any of these, you automatically end up like pulling out the tabs or changing where that layout is. And basically any panel in here can be undocked and put somewhere else. And any panel in here can hopefully go back to where I had it. Thank you. Any panel can also be thrown into a panel. So you can basically have like any of these. Well, that's just silly. I don't need the outliner on top of the outliner, thanks. But you know, you can have all kinds of stuff put in there. Anything can be docked anywhere. So if you happen to have two monitors, if you're animating, what I do, if you can work at home with two monitors, I cannot recommend enough keeping your graph editor open. Oh, whoops. I still had my insert edge loop tool open. Wait, what the heck? Hello? Oh, great. Here's another thing I changed. Apparently I can't select anything. Today really was a day to break everything. Oh, that's why. All my selection masks were turned off. That's interesting. line components, like, interesting. I select them now? Nope. You know, all components off. Somewhere in here, oh no, I want to select all objects. There we go. It was set to select components instead of objects, which is a problem because I wasn't working with components. There we go. If you have two monitors, stick your graph editor on the other monitor, and that way it's constantly visible, and so you can always see A versus B. If you can't do that, then do this at least to look at stuff. Yeah, I actually, for the graph editor, yeah, if we can't use two monitors, there's a couple different ways to do it. One of them is to do like what we did here with the two different views. However, for the graph editor, there's too much crap in it basically, and I feel like I can't see enough of the timeline. So for me, for my money, it's actually a little bit better use of space to do this. Because most of the stuff we're working with, we need the channel box open, right? Because you need to be able to select like all your stuff. And most of the things we're working with don't go past this in terms of the number of things. So then this is all just junk. It's like a waste of space. Throw your sort of disconnected graph editor over it, and now you're using up all of this. You get a little bit of extra leg room on your graph editor for time, right? Because this graph editor really is meant to be like a landscape kind of situation. And then this way, I can look at the foot, and I like look. If I look at A, whoops, A, B, come on, A, B. See how that lump is moving side to side? That's how you can tell that these two things are related and they're mirrors of each other. And you can do that with any of these. And you can't learn that lesson unless you can click real quick and see both of them at the same time. This is the inverse of this, mostly. This should be the inverse of this, right? The more you can have this graph editor up and looking at it, even if you're just half looking at it, and you see those curves and you see what's happening, the better you'll be. And truth be told, you might want to go through it if you realize you're never going to use certain things and you're done, you know, using S to key things. You know, you may want to go through and delete certain stuff and make it easier. Shoulder orient. I'm definitely not dealing with that right now. And just leave the stuff that you want to have. I'm going to leave rotate X in here because whenever I'm dealing with a compound joint like a shoulder, I don't want to not key this. I might end up using it. But yeah, I'd say anything you can do to have the character visible while the graph editor is visible, even if it's smaller. You know, when you're working on something, you know, you do this. And then when you're done, you put it back down here. It should shrink back down to where you were. And that should hopefully help. So does it make sense? Where's that yours stays open when you're clicking on the main page? Yours tabs down. Interesting. So when you click on this main viewport, the graph editor goes away. Ooh, that should not be the case. Autodesk Maya, keep graph editor in front. Huh. Graph editor. How about this? Autodesk Maya hide graph editor when clicking on viewport. Graphic editor? What the heck? Come on, Google. I would have to look this up because I should have the same settings as you guys. Um, that's a very helpful thing that you don't have access to. Alright, time ruler, select move, skip, boo. They don't have information on it right now. The window doesn't go down. Close and reopen. If anyone here has seen the IT crowd, have you tried turning your computer off and turning it back on again? It's for real. So yeah, definitely keep this open. Watch these things as they change. As you change something here, you watch as it changes there. If you don't have two monitors, this I would say is the ideal situation. So hopefully when you close and go back out again, if you resize this, it'll help you keep it in front. Otherwise, dock it as a panel. You know, in one of your two panels here. Less good use of your space, but it's still better than not having it open at all. Anyone else have any other questions or comments or things that didn't work the way I showed them? Because as we can see, sometimes the settings can be funny. All right, I don't see anyone coming in here. Cool. So by next week, you want to have, I'd say, your 4 major poses mostly done. You know, put them into the flat tangent mode just to see how they look. At least, you know, like have gotten, you know, started on that. You don't have to be married to it, but you know, you want to have enough in there that we can look at it and that you can run into all the problems you're going to run into, right? You want to like break it in all these various ways so that we can fix it. I see that precisely 2 people have signed up for a time slot. Cool. I do realize that it went outside the bounds of class a little bit because 15 minutes would only be 5 people could get fit in, and we have 8. So I'm adding a couple of time slots that are slightly earlier, or at least one, anyways, that's slightly earlier. So in case going in right time doesn't work, please, please, please sign up for a time so that we can, you know. Oh, there we go. A few people signed up. Yes. So this is in place of what would normally be everyone in the classroom, and I walk around. Uh-oh. Can anyone hear me right now? Oh, you can't hear me because the battery looks like it's dead. Yeah, cool. Good. So, yeah, sign up for a time slot, get some work done. It is on the final project. Basically, in ye olde days, you all would be in here. It'd be an hour and 15 minutes of work time, and I would bounce around the room and talk to you. Can't do that, so instead, it's signed up times, and then I meet with you individually, one at a time, and I'll have the 15 minutes. I have the class set up so that you're all moderators, so you can easily share your screen, and you'll be able to turn your mic on if you want to just talk. If you can't talk, we'll do chat. That's fine. Yeah. Oh, cool. So now we're 5 for 8, and excellent. So a couple people here, a couple people remote. Exactly what I expected. All right. So that's it. So thank you guys for putting up with everything breaking. And I will see you. I am available for general questions over the next few days. I'm on vacation. I'm away. I won't have access to Maya though. So like, but don't hesitate to email me because you might the problem you're having might be something I've heard of. And the person I'm vacationing with works in this professionally. So like, if I haven't heard of the problem, maybe he has. But there's a very good chance that whatever issue you ran into, I don't have to look at the file to be like, oh, that it's this, right? So yeah, so sign up for time if you haven't already. Otherwise, get at least your 4 poses done. Those videos are up there. Add a little bit of your own style. It doesn't have to be hugely cartoony or anything. Just add a little bit of your own style to it. And I will see you all in a week.